No, I agree. And speaking of the shutdown, I'm curious to see. It's been a while since it ended now, and I still think overall that it was a win for the Dems, and I say that because, yeah, but the optics were bad. So what I mean by that is that when you look at what they achieved of making healthcare an issue that the country was focusing on much more because it's one of the very few issues where the Dems do better in polls consistently. Also, so many Dems I know have been frustrated by the fact that, yes, I know that a lot of Republicans vote on culture, race, religion more than their pocketbooks. But doesn't the fact that Donald Trump's policies are so bad economic view, isn't that at least a factor? And now I think you're starting to see it because what really came across was he didn't seem to care. He was focusing on the White House and throwing parties at Mar-a-Lago and fighting, going to court to not pay SNAP benefits. And so I think a lot of people are saying, God, is this guy really looking out for me? And then having dinner with the billionaires and all this stuff. So I think they achieved that goal as well. So, and even if the vote fails, which there's a good chance it will, at least people now are aware of it. They got their premium increase notices in early November, and it's going to take effect in January. But again, the optics were terrible because they could have done it more strategically, and it did look like for no reason that they folded. But their argument is, hey, we're the only party that cares. Uh, Trump was never going to care, so we had to end it at some time. So we achieved our goals. But what do you think, Kurt?
I think that it's both. I think that when you look at the results of the election from a couple Tuesdays ago, and especially in places like Virginia, where there are a tremendous amount of federal workers, it is very clear that Republicans lost the shutdown narrative in those places based on the results that we saw. Where Democrats, did so well that even the very, very flawed attorney general nominee was like, brought across the goal line by the sheer numbers of Democrat votes that we got. I think that it was bad for Trump across the board, and even Trump saying, he said flat out, undercutting Republican messaging everywhere. We lost the shutdown. That kind of speaks for itself. I think it was a loss for Chuck Schumer. I think it was a huge political loss for just that leadership in general. Both Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries in the last month have taken a huge hit. Their approval, Chuck Schumer's approval rating is like 17% right now. Hakeem Jeffries just drew a primary challenger from, I think it's a New York City council member that's going to be primarying him. And so it was a loss for leadership, but political net benefit for Democrats overall.
Yeah, you know what, Kurt? I just, I mean, listen, I think we've all said this. I think that the shutdown's a loser for everybody because I think it's like a really dumb political move on both sides of the aisle. But what Democrats did do is bring the help. Listen, these subsidies were going the subsidies were going to go up one way or the other, even if they were extended. Just the pure. I just learned this actually the last 10 days of just what was really going to happen, no matter what. What the dialogue did that I think is pretty smart, whether they intended it to do or not. I know they intended it to be talking about healthcare, but what they did is no matter what happens January 30th, which is the new date of the shutdown, no matter what happens at the end of the year, it's going to go back on Republicans because
Yeah,
there's no way these subsidies are going to be extended from Republicans
yeah, I think that's right.
at the same level. Like there's just
Yeah,
there's
there's
no
no
way
way
they
they'd
could get
be
it
able to get
across.
it done. They
No.
legislatively, when you just look at that calendar right now, we're about to hit the Thanksgiving break. They're gone, obviously, for 2 weeks in December and the first week of
Th-
January.
Yeah.
There's just not enough legislative calendar days to get a healthcare deal through committee, through the House, through the Senate. Like, I just don't see it happening.
Well, I was just asking, like, do we kick the can down the road and extend them again? But there's just a lot of fundamental people that believe that there's people on these subsidies that should not be on them anymore. And like, if you believe and ran on waste, fraud, and abuse, and listen, there probably are a lot of people on there but it's really hard to take away a subsidy that's already been given, and we
Yeah, so to
all know
say, it's
that.
like when you take away a subsidy that's already given, it's called a tax increase. That's how it gets messaged in an election year, which we're going to be heading into. And Donald Trump
I
could
think how
promise to cut all the $2,000 checks he wants to the American people. By the time they get that check, like it'll be so baked in
Yep.
that
I think it's
everything got more expensive.
I think it's the border issue of 2 year or 18 months ago, whenever. I mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
think this
Yeah.
is the
But the
border
border
issue and
was to Democrats. This time
yes.
down, healthcare will be to Republicans.
Yes, I think, and we always lose on healthcare.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that was the great.
Except Obamacare in 2010.
True.
Well, but
We did win the House.
but Obama did lose for that because Americans had said, "We want you focusing on the economy." And he said, "No, I want to do healthcare." And so I think the timing was off, and that's one of the reasons that, frankly, the Tea Party exists. George Bush's profligacy was also a reason that for the gestation of the Tea Party. But that election in 2010 was one of the great wallops ever, and I think a lot of it was because people felt that he had messed up, that he had priorities other than what they wanted. But